Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. I'll tell you what, for back-to-back shows, we have done something that virtually no show anywhere in sports did. It has been Iamaleava free here on the Aaron Torres pod for about the last week or so. We talked when Nico had all of the chaos at Tennessee, what was going to happen, who was right, who was wrong. I sided with Josh Heupel. We stand with Josh Heupel against Nico Iamaleava on this show. By the way, if I screw up the Iamaleava name, forgive me. I get so many comments and they go, oh, you be a professional, learn that. Listen, I'm doing the best I can. Anyway, we talked a lot about Nico with the first chaos at Tennessee. Then we talked about when he entered the portal and basically the idea of like, there really aren't that many schools that are interested in him. Then from there, I thought the story kind of pattered out. It became clear pretty early that he was going to end up at UCLA. You can see him now in the UCLA blue and gold on the screen. I thought there was another kind of fun twist on Monday night. It actually broke during our show when we found out that the projected UCLA starter Joey Aguilar is now going to Tennessee. So basically you get a QB for QB swap. Anyway, I bring it up because we've been largely Iamaleava free on this show, at least until Tuesday, because we got a big story involving this family, this time with the younger Iamaleava. You can see him on that screen, Madden Iamaleava. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, let me tell you this, people. You think the Iamaleava dad, you think Nick Iamaleava screwed up Nico's life? You might have not seen anything yet because, you've seen those memes, Iamaleava, I'm a leaving. They might be getting sued as a family based on what we found out about on Tuesday. So let's go ahead and just jump on in, okay? So obviously, look, Nico's in the rearview mirror. It is what it is. Agree, disagree, whatever. I'm over that story, okay? What I think a lot of people didn't really realize, again, younger Iamaleava brother, Madden Iamaleava, was a four-star quarterback in this previous high school class of 2025, okay? So last fall was his senior year. Now, ironically, he didn't play because he tried to transfer. Something funky happened. The CIF, which is the California Interscholastic Federation, basically said there's something suspicious going on with this transfer. We're not letting you play. So that should be a red flag right there. But Madden Iamaleava was a four-star, didn't play as a senior, but was still a very highly regarded quarterback recruit. Not quite Nico, but that's okay. Whatever. Elite talent, wish him the best, whatever. Interesting recruitment, to say the least, because he was actually originally committed to UCLA. Then on National Signing Day, he flips to Arkansas. At the time, everything's going good with Nico at Tennessee. You don't think really much of it. Well, that commitment and that story certainly was in the news over the last couple weeks because of the older brother, right? Everybody just pencils in Nico to UCLA. And I think people who follow college football sat there and said, well, wait a second now. What is the relationship with the family? Because the younger brother was committed to UCLA, flipped on National Signing Day. Is Nico even welcome at UCLA based on the relationship with the younger brother? Well, Nico ends up committing. We've obviously talked about that. And then from there, what became interesting was what was going to happen to Madden. Was he going to stay? Was he going to go? He's been out of the news. I mean, listen, I go on Arkansas radio every week. They were asking me last week, what do you think about this story? Well, I bring it up because in news that was probably a little bit surprising, but a little bit not surprising as well, Madden Iamaleava entered the transfer portal on Monday night. Okay, so it's following the Joey Aguilar news at UCLA. He's going to Tennessee. Madden Iamaleava is going to UCLA, is going into the portal. We later find out he's going to UCLA. That's not really that surprising. Whatever. Of course, if that was only the story, younger brother transferring back to LA to play with his older brother, I don't think we'd really be talking about it. But it certainly took a twist on Tuesday because while Tennessee was more than happy to just let Nico walk, wash their hands of the Iamaleava family, said, we want nothing to do with it. It feels as though Arkansas has not taken the same route because it was a busy day, a crazy day. And I'll tell you this, I thought something might be coming. I didn't actually send you this, producer Matt, so I apologize. But on Monday night, after it came out that Madden Iamaleava would enter the transfer portal. Brandon Marcello, for people who don't know him, he works for CBS. He is very tied into the Arkansas athletic department. I don't know if he lives in Arkansas, but he clearly has a relationship and inner workings in that athletic department. He was the one who interviewed John Tyson maybe about a month ago in the lead up to March Madness. So he's plugged in. And on Tuesday night, let me see if I can find a timestamp. 8:25 Eastern, 7:25 Central, he tweeted out something interesting. He said, "You gotta wonder how some boosters and collectives feel about paying a player six figures for them to only stay on campus for spring practice before leaving for another team. Gotta have buyout language in these contracts." Now, certainly, that could be, in this world, it could be about literally anybody. But the timing didn't seem coincidental that a guy that is very clearly plugged into the Arkansas community tweeted that out hours after Madden Iamaleava entered the portal, a couple days after his brother. And so you kind of sat there, you said, is there something going on here that we need to know about? And I'll tell you this, it appears as though there is, because producer Matt, why don't you go ahead and put the statement up from Hunter Yurachek, the Arkansas athletic director. He put out this statement on Tuesday morning, okay? So he puts out this statement that says, "I have spoken with the leadership team at Arkansas Edge and expressed my support in their pursuit to enforce their rights under any agreement violated by our student athletes moving forward. We appreciate Edge's investment in our student athletes and acknowledge the enforcement of these agreements is vital in our new world of college athletics. We look forward to continuing dialogue with all parties in resolving these matters." All right, so that's a bunch of legal, I don't want to say legal mumbo jumbo, but I read that, and it seems pretty clear to me. Arkansas Edge is one of Arkansas, or I think it's the primary Razorbacks collective, so the group that raises money and then gives it out as part of NIL. And basically, if you don't want to read all that legalese, basically what the Arkansas AD did and what the Arkansas AD said on Tuesday was essentially, hey, if we have a legally binding NIL contract, if we have a contract that legally binds a player to this university for a certain amount of time or a certain amount of commitments, and they do not match those commitments before they end up leaving campus, I have given my collective permission to pursue legal opportunities, legal ramifications, and basically it sounds like they're ready to sue athletes if they take a bunch of money and they don't do anything to earn it and they break the stipulations of this contract. And so, to be blunt, listen, there is no direct reference to Madden Iamaleava. There is no direct reference to the Iamaleava family, and it could be about anybody or anything or whatever. But I think when you see the manner in which the Iamaleava family has handled themselves, when you see Brandon Marcello's tweet, when you see the fact that they weren't afraid to screw over one SEC school and it looks like they're willing to do it to another, it feels very clear that Arkansas is standing their ground. While Tennessee said, "Nico, take a hike. We don't want anything to do with you," Arkansas appears to be saying, hey, this Madden Iamaleava kid, we brought him in, we paid him some money. There were expectations that he either did certain things or stayed a certain amount of time. And it feels like Arkansas is ready to sue the Iamaleava family if they don't basically pay back what they have to pay back. So I got a lot of thoughts on this. Obviously, the first thing I think that stands out to me, first of all, I love it. First of all, big win, big public win for Hunter Yurachek, Arkansas's AD, okay? Yurachek, poor guy, he hasn't taken a lot of public victory laps the last year or so. The football program's kind of in shambles. We all thought they should have fired Sam Pittman after last year. He decides to keep him. They canceled the spring game on Saturday with basically no notice. I know a lot of people were upset about that. But listen, I thought this was a very public, by the way, Hunter Yurachek got zero credit for anything to do with John Calipari. John Tyson got all the credit for that one. So I only bring it up to very simply say he hasn't taken a lot of public victories in the last year or so, but this feels like a big W for Hunter Yurachek because he basically appears to be the first college athletic director to really stand up and say, okay, listen, we all get that this is the world we live in. We're happy to pay players, but enough is enough. To quote Nick Saban, remember Nick Saban had that famous quote? He said something like, listen, it's a give or take world. And right now the schools are giving. and the players are taking, and there's no middle ground. Well, it feels like Hunter Yurachek is basically the first AD to do it. And I'll say this, I think it's good for college athletics. Okay, listen, one, rev share is coming. It's going to be a little bit more of a legal process as rev share kind of phases its way in. And I do think we get to collective bargaining at some point. But right now, there is no doubt that the players have virtually all, if not all, of the control. And so for an AD to say, wait a second now, we are happy to compensate you for being at our university and playing for our teams, but there are expectations. And if you sign a legally binding contract and you do not meet the specifications of that we are willing to pursue legal action, I actually think that's a good thing. And I think more and more we are going to see colleges and schools do this. It's funny. I have a lawyer buddy who at some point with all this chaos, I should probably get on, but he's been adamant for like the last, I don't know, year or so. Every time I talk to him, he's like, school is never going to sue players. A school is never going to seek damages. He's like, it's bad PR. It's bad publicity. It's bad this. It's bad that. It hurts recruiting. I'll say this. One, I don't think it hurts recruiting. I think, listen, recruiting is about, do you have the right amount of money? Sign me up. I'm ready to go. Okay. I don't think any player actively engages in an NIL agreement expecting to break it. But two, I just think we're at a different place with NIL than we were even a year or two ago. In other words, I think the public perception has actually largely changed on NIL. For years, it was the big bad NCAA, the big bad schools. They're making all this money off these kids. These poor kids. And I think really the last like 6 months, we've kind of realized like, oh, in the NIL era, the players have it pretty well. And I think increasingly this feels like the spring where the administrators are starting to take back some of the control. You see Tennessee kick Nico to the curb. You see, by the way, did anybody see the Fran Brown quote? Fran Brown is the head football coach at Syracuse. And basically his best wide receiver entered the portal. He was asked about it. And he basically said like, look, that kid says he's worth $2 million. I ain't paying $2 million to a wide receiver. He's got to get the heck out of here. Fran Brown said that. I saw something with Chad Baker-Mazara from Auburn where he apparently signed a legally binding contract and took money from Auburn. And Auburn's like, dude, if you're leaving, that's fine, but you got to pay some of this back. So to me, I think that it is a very interesting time in the world of college sports because it does feel like these administrators are fighting back. What I think is equally as important, and I'm just going to say it, Nico Iamaleava, the father of Nico and Madden. Let me say this. Don't think he's going to be up for very many Father of the Year awards in 2025. Okay. And listen, before I get into it, because I know people will crush me in the comments, I don't know what he's like as a dad. I don't know what he's like giving piggyback rides when the kids were 2. And did he dress up as Santa on Christmas Eve? And I know that he loves his kids. Okay. This is not about tear down the man, tear down the human. But very publicly, he has, let's call it what it is. He has screwed over both of his kids. He just has. You can argue with me. You can fight me. You can say it's unfair. I'm sorry. The dad has screwed over both of those kids and frankly, put them in a worse position than they would have been without him. We all know about Nico. But part of the reason that I never talked about Nico to UCLA was because transparently, I just felt like there wasn't really a story there. When Nico entered the portal and it was clear USC wasn't calling, Notre Dame wasn't calling, Texas Tech wasn't calling, Bill Belichick and UNC weren't interested, and the schools that appeared to be interested were Tulane, who then pulled out, and UCLA, it was over. Like Tennessee won that argument. Like Tennessee won the breakup. Nico was going to a worse situation with worse talent around him, and he was going to have to take a pay cut. Maybe it'll work out for Nico. Maybe this is unpopular. I hope it does. I don't want to see a 21-year-old's life ruined because of his dad's greed. But at the same time, that is why Nico is at UCLA, because of his dad's greed, because of the fact that they had a binding legal contract, which we just talked about, in which Tennessee was on the hook for $2.4 million this year, and it wasn't enough for the dad. It wasn't enough for the advisor. I'm sorry. I know Nico's an adult and he's got to make his own decisions, but 20-year-olds aren't holding schools hostage for an extra $1 million. They're just not. That's not how it works. And so I feel bad for Nico. He was on the track. He was going to be playing for a playoff contender, and now he's going to be playing for a bad UCLA team in a tough Big Ten where basically every single time he takes the field, he's going to be at a talent disadvantage. Now, maybe it works out well. Maybe he's so good with the talent deficiency that we realize, oh, he's better than we gave him credit for. But based on what we saw at Tennessee, he has a long way to go. But Nick, the dad, did put him in a worse situation. It's just the truth. Then you have the situation with Madden. As I said, was not eligible his senior year of high school, goes to Arkansas for a semester, transfers. Maybe it'll work out well for him too, but even if he makes it onto the field, even if he ends up having a great career, he's about to get sued by his former school, allegedly, if you read into the Hunter Yurachek statement. And so again, I want to be clear. I don't know what Nick Iamaleava is like behind the scenes. I'm not saying he's a terrible dad. He didn't give great birthday gifts. I know he loves his kids, but he has put both of his kids in 2 weeks. He has put his kids in a worse situation, worse whatever, worse football situation. And now his younger son might be getting sued, literally sued by Arkansas. And I'll tell you this, what I said, public sentiment is behind Arkansas on this one. Public sentiment is behind the administrators, where I think everybody understands, like, dude, at some point, these school, like the players are obligated to do something. You can't just show up and take, whether it's $10,000 or $1 million. You can't just show up and do nothing and expect to get paid and expect there not to be consequences if you break your contract. So I'll tell you what, we thought this Iamaleava story was done. The truth is, it feels like it's just beginning, because now Madden is in the crosshairs. We'll see what happens with him and Arkansas.